Hello, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Five, another session of the Five. And welcome, Michelle. Welcome, um,
Well,
Tamika. Our other member is currently not here today, but she'll be back next time. So we ask you to join in our discussion. Go ahead and put your comments in the comment chat section. Also, like and subscribe. And please don't hesitate to join in the conversation. We welcome all forms of questions, any thing you want to add to the conversation. And welcome. Tonight, let's talk about something we're familiar with. We're going to first talk about accountability and how it works in our relationships. And we're going to also delve into the communication process in relationships. So, first, dealing with accountability, our question would be what is accountability and how does one process it? And in doing my notes, I'll start off and then you ladies can chime in as you want to. Accountability is the responsibility to take ownership of your actions, decisions, their outcomes, whether positive or negative. It also involves being answerable to yourself or others for fulfilling commitments and obligations. And it plays a vital role in personal growth, relationships, and pretty much everywhere in your life work, job, whatever function you might be in church, wherever you are in life, you have to be accountable. Ladies?
right.
I absolutely agree.
Mhm. You know, Sometimes with accountability, we have a tendency to point the finger,
Mhm.
and you don't realize sometimes, okay, relationship wise, if it went the wrong way, accountability, ability, I'm sorry, you saw the red flags, you saw them coming, you ignored them. You can't blame that person. You have to blame yourself. You allowed it, and it took a turn you didn't want it to take, but you can't keep pointing the finger at the other person when you allowed it. That's one.
That's a good point, Michelle, because I have here part of the key elements of accountability is ownership, owning the part that you played in, that you took part in the situation.
Mhm.
So that's very, very pertinent is having ownership. Other part says having responsibility, transparency, and what did you learn from it? What mistakes did you do, and how can you grow and improve?
Yeah. Um, Everything that was said so far is good. I think that the key point of accountability, as we everyone basically stated, is ownership, oneself. And I feel like whether it's your employment, your career, whether it's your friendship, whether it's your spouse, um, I feel as though that oneself thing is key. And we had the discussion before where it's, you know, don't listen to respond, but listen, communicate to listen. Don't just be so quick to be able to want to respond to get your part out. So I think accountability, plays in that as well. If we dissect ourselves, um, most of the time, if that was really done, I don't think there will be any conflict or interest, or there will be any type of discrepancy if we basically took accountability for ourselves. Um,
Mhm.
it's I wrote down here, you can only worry about yourself. How can oneself do better? because at the end of the day, you can't change anyone else.
Right.
So it's like, why worry about if it's a conflict in whatever the conversation or the debate may be? You can only be accountable for what you say and what you do and the part that you played in it. Um, and the
Yeah.
scripture to go to that is Romans 14:12. It says, "So then each of us will give an account of himself to God." This verse states that everyone will be held accountable before God. So it's even biblical that we're held accountable,
Yeah.
whether we were supposed to do something and we didn't. If you're at work and you were supposed to order the vaccines for that day, if you don't do your part in ordering the vaccines or ordering the correct tubing or ordering the correct needles when the patient comes in for tomorrow's visit, if we don't have the supplies, obviously the
Perfect.
patient can't get what they need done. And it's not always necessary to point the finger, but sometimes even when I'm dealing with my patients, if I make an error, I basically tell them, "Oh, I do apologize. That was my misunderstanding, or maybe I had lack of knowledge, or I didn't know, or you know what I mean, whatever the case may be." Sometimes people are more open and acceptable to just hearing my bad, my fault, you know, just them hearing that they're more okay, well, no problem. Can we reschedule? Instead of
Yeah.
you not taking accountability of the error, whether it was yours or not. Sometimes you may have to take the blame for a coworker's lack, especially if they're not in the office. It's like you're the one talking to the person, so you're gonna have to say something to get that person on the other end of the phone to calm down and relax. You know what I mean? So it's just that accountability. Is just all you can do. I think is just worry about oneself and then ask yourself this question all the time: is how can I better um oneself? How can I better myself? Even if it's in a marriage, um most of the time, especially in a marriage, most of the time the stuff that spouse do, they don't even know that they're doing it, but it's a trigger to you because it may be something that you may need to take accountability for. Even though it's them that's doing it, or you may look at it as it's them that's doing it or causing the problem, but if it's whatever they may say that may just rub your nerve the wrong way, that could be a red flag to you. Like, okay, it's something, but why is this thing bothering me?
Right.
Why is when my mate say X, Y, and Z, it ticks me and make me go to 1,000? It's just that accountability to figure it out. All right, well, let's sit down, babe, and discuss and see what the chemistry is. What's the missing formula? Oh, I hear that you said this, and then repeat the question sometimes and repeat the issue at hand.
Yeah, and that's how communication comes right through. You see how it fit right through? It goes hand in hand. To be able to address it, you have to communicate.
Yeah, it's a vibe. And if you care about that person, to me, you're gonna want to take accountability, um, and try to make it better.
Mhm. And that's growth. That's maturity to be able
I was
to,
going to say the same thing. That's growth.
yeah, because you don't think like that when you're like 10, 12, even in your 20s, even in your 30s sometimes. People mature in different ways, different levels, different speeds, So when you can finally come to that realization, to that mindset, that in itself is growth. Because that's hard to do. Even to recognize that in oneself, like I need to do this, that comes with um just I don't even know if it's a training because are we even taught like this in school? Are we like it? either through being able to, maybe through therapy, or just being cognizant of what worked and what didn't work, and you want to try to do something different, because the way you've been communicating, you've been handling situations that hasn't been working out for you. So you finally can come to that. It's a blessing, it's a great thing to finally come to that realization, that mindset, okay, let me just do it this way. And that's when it finally works. And that's growth in itself, and that's improvement, that's self-improvement. And that's not usually easy to do.
But I think in school you are for it because
Are we?
you sit there, sort of, kind of. You sit there and you have a test,
Hmm.
and you go, okay, why did I get a D on this test? And your teacher goes, well, did you study?
Okay. Hmm.
That's taking accountability. No, I really didn't study. I just browsed through it. So how you
Yeah,
gonna and you got a D on your test?
Mm-hmm.
that's a
And
good point.
as far as relationships, when you get married, most of the time you guys are still like babes, and you're growing and you're learning and you're growing. And I know with myself, with my marriage, it was, oh, he's married. He did this, he did that, or she did this, she did that. And we would, this is what we're doing, pointing the fingers back and forth, back and forth.
Yeah.
And as we're getting older and we're growing and we're communicating, we realize, oh man, why did I say that? You
Yeah.
know, let me go apologize because I was wrong. I shouldn't have said that. When you can grow, especially grow together, and
Mm-hmm.
realize the things that you're saying and doing is not always the other person, and you have to check yourself. Your relationship, you will grow. Will.
Yeah. Yeah. It's about actions. That's just like somebody repetitively tells you, I love you, I love you, I love you, and they just keep saying, I love you, I love you. But that's
The
it.
action says the opposite. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
At some point, you're gonna be like, well, do you?
You
Oh,
love it.
yeah, I do. Why you say that?
That
Well,
lip service.
because your actions, you saying it, but this here isn't lining up. So it goes back to that word of ownership. Um, oneself. And it really depends on the individual. And you know, change isn't always a good thing for some. Um,
Change is hard for, in general.
huh?
Change is
And most
hard in general. Yeah.
It's a challenge, but if you have that mindset and you're open-minded, change is a wonderful thing when you embrace it. Like we
Absolutely.
as humans make things more difficult than they really need to be.
Yeah.
Because change, I look at change as an awesome thing. Yeah, it's an adjustment because you're not used to doing the formula the same repetitive way to get the same outcome. But after a while, you get tired of doing the same thing or wearing the same thing. Like for example, I couldn't wait to have to be able to wear scrubs because, my job at one point required, business attire. And I'm like, it's a struggle. It takes me a whole half a night to
mhm,
find an outfit for the next day.
Mhm.
So when they enforce scrubs, yes, great, I'm on it, love it. But now I'm getting sick of seeing the same old ugly maroon top and black bottoms. So what do I have to do to bring life to it to change it up? I have to change up my footwear. Like I'm changing up my sneakers. One day it might be a Converse, the next day it might be a boot, the next day it might be a Puma. Like you have to change the atmosphere, change the environment, change something to bring it life. I might wear earrings one day. Next day I might not wear earrings. I might put on a different necklace, like to boost it up, to make yourself feel confident and good at your job, I have to liven up my scrubs. I have to change the basic burgundy and black and add some colorful sneakers or grab a colorful bag. So I to me, change is a lovely thing. Um, so what can we do? So I'm kind of throwing a monkey wrench in there now because I just prompted a question for accountability. For what can we do, whether it's our spouse or whoever it is, outside of praying for that person that doesn't want to take accountability and is frustrating your purpose or it's just, making you angry or making you not want to deal with that patient when as soon as you know they on the schedule, you telling your coworker, yo, so and so's coming in today. Like, can you handle that? Or, you know what I mean? You see the 1-800 number coming through your caller ID at work. Like, it frustrates you because it's either a drug rep or an insurance company or something that aggravates you. Um, but how do you help yourself when you're dealing with somebody that does not want to take accountability?
I think you have to be cognizant of your own actions. You can only be responsible for how you respond and how you behave. Like was said earlier, you can't force anybody to do anything, and you're only in control of yourself. So be mindful of how you feel, your emotions in that moment, and then maintain self-control. Like maybe you may have to create distance, or maybe you have to um, pass it on to a coworker, or if it's a family member, maintain distance or maintain a level of respect, but then don't let it go beyond that point. You know what I mean? And just really try hard to maintain self control because you can only be responsible for your own actions. And once it becomes different or disrespectful, you have to just exit yourself out of the situation so you don't lose yourself. That's one way I know that I would do for myself.
I think that's good advice. You have
Sometimes
anything, Shell?
it could be really hard, but the way I deal with it, um, like Bernice said, I just sit there sometimes and I just think about my actions and how I respond to it. And this is going to get me fired and maybe locked up.
Come on
So,
now.
yeah, so I have to
Stop.
realize that person's probably really going through a lot and they will not take accountability, will not. And believe it or not, I do have a coworker like that. Will
Mm.
not take accountability at all. There's been so many times that I stepped in and said, okay, I'll do this. Like Mika said, you take one for the team. Okay, I'll do this, I'll do that, just so everything can go smooth. But it comes down to prayer,
Mm. Mm.
comes down to patience
Mhm.
and
Lots of faith.
understanding too, because that person don't know how to take accountability.
Right.
That's a
Sometimes if
good
you
one.
don't know, you can't do something. You don't know how. You don't even know that you pointing the finger at everyone. Sometimes um, patience play a big part in prayer.
Lots of patience and prayer.
Yes.
That's a
Hmm.
good one. That's definitely um good. I don't think I can add anything else to it because the main thing is you can't change anyone. So it's like, why try to concern yourself or frustrate yourself in trying to do so? So prayer, patience, and backing yourself out of it. So, and I also learned a good thing that I will say is um study to be silent.
Mm.
Like when I know that I'm trying not to go there, I just become
Mhm.
sort of say like a deaf mute. I don't hear nothing. And ain't
Mhm.
nothing. I'm not verbalizing anything because I'm trying to collect myself. So,
That's all you can do. One question I wanted to piggyback off of that question is,
mhm.
as far as yourself trying to maintain accountability, how does one process it? Like, if you're trying to do it or get to it, how can you? Okay, because you first acknowledge, okay, something happened, something was said on both sides by both parties. So now you're acknowledging yourself. How do you navigate to get to accountability? And I'll start off first. In doing my research, well, I had a couple of things. It says first is ownership, number one. You acknowledging it, accepting your part in the situation, in either the wins or the failures, whatever happened. You're accepting your ownership, your part in the situation, and to avoid blame, which is could be hard. And what else would you guys add to that after you've owned up to it?
Well, after you owned up to it, you're taking accountability. So you're asking what to do next once you take accountability?
Yeah, because according to this, it's saying that you want to clarify expectations. Because sometimes it's maybe maybe a few hours, a few days before you can even get there because you're still processing it. Because you're full of emotion. You're still angry. You're probably very, very hurt, right? So you're processing a lot of emotions. Like you know that you took part in it, but you're still on the receiving end of what was done or said to you as well. Because we're human, right?
Okay.
So you're still
So,
processing all those emotions, all those thoughts, all those things that you want to flip out, flip in. You want to say certain things, but you're processing, right? So one point it says is to clarify expectations, like give yourself time before you can actually get to that point. Give yourself time to pass through those emotions, pass through what you're feeling, so you don't react too fast.
yeah. So
Clarify those
I
expectations.
think with that clarification, it's maturity. So it depends. It for me, it depends on um the relationship of the person that I'm conversing with. If it's, we already discussed scenarios for coworkers, but if it's a indeed friendship, or if it's a spouse or a loved one, um, I think both parties should be able to offer that space that you can feel comfortable, maybe to go to them and say, or even if you don't feel comfortable, just to clear your mind if it's taunting you, to go to that person and say, well, listen, we had a conversation X, Y, and Z, and what bothered me, or even to start off with, I apologize for the part that I played, could start off and initiate a good conversation. Because once that person see that you're taking accountability, then we can go into the next phase of, well, I feel like you hurt my feelings because you said this, or you didn't say this, or um, you just gotta be expressive. And that's the issue with a lot of relationships, I think, is the communication. It
Right.
sucks.
There you go. Yep.
It sucks. So just to be able to go back to that person and just say, your true feelings, and then however they take it, and even if they don't want to, accept, um, even if they don't want to be accountable, you got to off your chest and you express how you feel. And if that person cares, they're either going to change to try to better the relationship, or it shows you where you stand. um I also see accountability, um negative. Sometimes a negative thing is a positive,
Yeah.
because for me, I don't want to go on to the next question, but for me, a person really showing you who they are
Leave them.
lets me decide exactly if I want to deal with this person or not going forward.
Hmm.
So a negative thing for me is not it could be definitely a positive, especially when you're dealing with relationships. Because at this time and age, we're all 40 and above, and ain't nobody got time. Like
Hmm.
for me, it's my peace. And if it's breaking my peace, I'm backing out and I may say what I say, because my thing for me is I always was boisterous. So saying how I feel wasn't never an issue. Maybe in my younger days, and maybe how it might have come out different compared to now, where I'm more mindful and I'm also picking and choosing the battle. Because some things is just not even worth you finding a different formula. Some things is not even worth you expressing that I didn't like that or I didn't care for that, because again, that person can be a repeat offender and could have, this is not their first time that person might have did X, Y, and Z. So you already know how they flow. You already know how they move. You already know they vibe. So it could just be a what they call it, a deal breaker. Like, all right, I got it. I understood. Say no more. So for me, that's my response.
Yeah, and that all involves always again goes down to communication. Communication is key to address your point, to address your grievances, to address what you felt about it, what offended you, and whatever you did that you offended, and even offering an apology. That's huge. That's part of accountability is acknowledging what you did and offering an apology is huge. Sometimes that could be the one thing that other person is waiting to hear to even open that window, open that door to
Mm-hmm.
for reconciliation. So
Mm-hmm.
that's huge. And even in that, once you guys are able to move through that to reconciliation, you're learning and growing from that to not be a repeat offender, to not make those same mistakes because you
Mm-hmm.
want to maintain that relationship.
Relationship,
You want
yeah,
to
because it's
maintain that
supportive.
if that's important to you. If it's
Yeah.
not important to you, then okay, you do something else. But if that's important to you, yeah,
Yeah.
because the goal is to reach true reconciliation. That's in my mind it is. I don't know about anybody else.
Yeah, and depending on how important that relationship is to you, absolutely.
It has to be just as important to the other person also. If you're talking about a relationship, you can tell if the other person is going to accept soon as you take accountability and you apologize. You could tell right from there because with myself, as soon as you take accountability and you apologize, that makes me more open, like, oh, okay. Now I am ready to sit down and talk. Okay. But I guess you can tell if that person's ready for a relationship, accepting the relationship, or
Mhm.
you pushing the relationship. You can tell when accountability comes in and you apologize and it's just not accepted. You can tell.
Yeah. Like I try to, when I'm dealing with people, and God knows how I feel about humans, um I try to be considerate of people, um because nowadays I think more, more than ever, trauma, that word trauma is a big thing for a lot of people, and a lot of people
Absolutely.
have trauma. So a lot of people respond to certain things whether negative or positive because of traumas, and it's not making an excuse for the person, but that could be the best that could be their best. That can be them putting their best foot forward, um, by even sometimes even having a conversation. Because some households, people may not even have that, like, communication. What's that? Or, expressing love. What's that? Um, Affection. What's that? Like, to some people that can be foreign. So they may possibly want a relationship with you, whether it's not always man and female, whether it's girlfriends or homies or however you want to phrase it, they could possibly inside want this friendship or want whatever this relationship is, but because of their past trauma, we're asking for accountability, which to us we look at it as being something easy because it's ownership. Um, but that could be a lot for a person, which again, I'm not making excuses. Like at my job, um, I deal with a lot of patients that are racist. And my coworkers, they're the sweetest little um mother-daughter relationship. Um, and the daughter always says to me, well, so and so has this is their diagnosis. So sometimes they're up, sometimes they're down. And she's trying to comfort me to make me be okay. But at the end of the day, I'm like, no, I hear you. I'm not taking away from their diagnosis, but they're flat out bold. They're just racist.
Mm-hmm. I've
And
been
then a
there.
mom will come in and be like, yeah, that's not an excuse for them to act how they act. They are racist. So, we deal with a lot of different uh
Personalities.
yeah,
But
yeah,
again, like you said, that's all they know.
yeah.
Sometimes if that's all you know, that's all you know. You know, ignorant
Oh,
can be like a knowledge. And with some of them that was raised by racist mommy and daddy, and then they come in and they want to give it to you, that's all they know. And I heard a girlfriend of mine say one time, I raised my son the best way I knew how. Because she didn't have the best upbringing. So she said the best way she knew how.
mhm. Yeah. I try to handle my patients with a loving heart to the utmost. Um, but it's just every now and then that I get one that just ticks me, and it's dealing with the racism or either just the ignorance. Like, you will not come in here and talk to me like this.
Mhm.
I'm
Yeah.
being as kind to you as possible. I'm trying to offer you all the help that I can offer you. The next office is not even going to write down a phone number for you. They're going to tell you to Google it. So I'm going above and beyond. You will not talk to me in this manner. And I say it as sweet as I possibly can, but with that sternness that you understand that you're not going to call this phone and you're not going to talk to me this way because I'm the one on the other end answering this phone. And for the most part, they get it. But then you just got some that's just like you said, was born and raised and is in their blood, their veins, the dead skin under their toenail. Like, it's embedded. And for those, all I can do is pray and go about my day.
Mhm.
And that's the
And
best response to have, because just because you don't have to like somebody to respect somebody. I don't care what background you came from, if it's racist trauma, because a lot of people went through something. You're the only person that's gone through something. Okay, just a mutual respect of saying hello, or just if you're walking in the public, or holding the door for somebody. I don't have to like you to offer kindness. It's just
Hmm.
sheer generalized respect.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't have to like you to respect you. So if you can't even come to that point, then like you said, you can respectfully say, no, don't talk to me that way in a respectful manner, respectful tone.
Hmm.
Because you're
Absolutely.
teaching them how to treat you.
Right.
And that
Yeah,
next phone call is going to be totally different.
that
Exactly.
part.
Exactly. Um, I guess looking at the time, I'm gonna see if we can quickly transition to the communication part, because we're dipping in communication so much with accountability. We do need communication. So that next question goes, how does communication play in your relationships? And as we said several times, to be accountable, you need to be able to communicate. So how you guys want to chime into that? Wait, you're muted. Somehow
Well,
your mute button.
yeah, so to be accountable, um, and communication, to be able to have that relationship, or how you're able, what was the question again?
How does
Oh,
communication play
playing
into a
relationship.
healthy relationship, right?
Yeah. Um, so it it depends on the couple. I put dependable. Because it really depends on the couple. It depends on their energy. It depends on their vibe. Um, for me, it's a key component, because communication is also not just verbally.
Mhm.
Communication is body language. When you're intimate, you're communicating. Um, when you're having sex, you're communicating. So it's not just communication is not just a verbal thing with words and expressions, but it's across the board. So it depends on the relationship, the vibe that you guys have. It depends on the respect that you guys have. It
Just about to say
depends
that.
on
Respect.
yeah, it depends on the openness that you guys have.
Mhm.
And to me, all of those tie into
Mhm.
to make that braid. Um, the healthy relationship is either in laughter, joy, peace. All
Mhm.
that is in a ball for me. And the main thing is the vibe and the energy. So it depends on a healthy relationship. If you're talking about someone that you're trying to get to know, or if you're talking about somebody that's already been together for years, um, it depends on that vibe and energy for me. And if the vibe and energy is negative, if it's more debates and more, like, the conversation should come at as an ease. It should be like
Yeah.
smooth.
Yep.
So if that's off, then there's a no for me,
Mhm. Yeah.
because those are the things you need for a positive relationship. All the other stuff can be your exponents, or however you want to get into the mathematical expression. But the main formula for me is those things. To be in a healthy relationship, we got to be able to laugh, we got to have joy, we got to have peace, respect, and I think openness. Being open helps you to be able to communicate,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it's just that mindset. So it depends on a couple. But for me, Those are
I
my
agree.
key components in a healthy relationship.
Honestly, all those that you mentioned, Tamika, I think with especially with the openness and the respect, all those tie in, I think, in a healthy relationship is trust. If I can trust you, I'll be open. If I can trust you, I'm open and respectful, no problem. If I can trust you, there's no issue, there's a nice vibe. But to be able to create trust, I have to feel safe, right? If I don't feel like if it's a safe space or a safe environment, how can I open? How can I be open? How can there be openness? And there can still be respect, but I won't be able to feel comfortable to open my mouth because I don't feel safe. If I don't feel safe, how can I trust you?
Yeah.
Able to open and talk about the deepest, darkest, secretive things that's hidden in your heart. If I don't feel safe, how can I be open to even ask you what the time is? What's the weather? You know what I mean? If I don't feel safe, I don't feel safe to talk about anything, let alone the important stuff. I think trust is key, but in order for me to trust you, I have to feel safe. Trust and safety is huge in a relationship, in a loving, healthy relationship.
It is. You definitely do have to trust the person. But
Absolutely.
my question to that would be, how do you know that you do or don't trust them if you're not communicating and having those open conversations? Um,
Yeah,
how do you know that you trust them or you don't trust them? You do or you don't trust them if you're not able to be open until you get that security, because that
that's a
could
hindrance.
be
Hmm.
like months down the line before you're at that point to trust. So in the time frame of getting up to that trust, what are we communicating about?
Point. That's it.
It's going to start, it's going to lead to that. It's going to be like this. You're not going to be able to come right away and be open and tell someone your deepest, darkest secrets. It's going to
Hmm.
take time. You're going to learn each other. You're going to be filling them out. The trust is going to gradually start creeping in. He has to show you, oh,
Right.
okay, I can trust him.
Mhm.
I remember the first time I was transparent with Reggie, and he was like, I can't believe you went through all of that. And he's to this day, he'd be like, I can't believe, because I started to feel open. I was the opposite of you, Mika. I was always quiet and shy. And you would never know what was going on because I wasn't the type to want to tell anybody. I had a problem with judgment. And people always judge when they really can't judge, but they'll be fast to judge you.
Mhm.
So I had a problem with being open. I was never vocal. It wasn't until I probably my late 30s, early 40s that became outspoken because people have a tendency to think that because you're quiet, you dumb, or you're quiet, you're a punk, and it was like when they hear you, it's like, oh, what you snapping for? I'm quiet. I'm not dumb.
Yeah.
I
Hmm.
don't have a problem, just quiet. I'm very observant,
Observant. Mhm.
and I can tell you something that you did last Friday, and you'd be like, I did, yeah, you did. Because I
Hmm.
sit back and I
And
watch.
listen.
So as my relationship started going with Rich, he made me feel comfortable enough to be able to open up to him. And it feels good when you're able to let it out. Trusting.
And did he make you feel safe?
Yes.
That's
When
what it
I
was.
when I started to open up. So he made me feel safe enough to be able to
Right.
communicate and tell him things that I probably never told anybody, or from my past, or the person that I used to be, because he knows the person that I am now, but I also don't want him to not know the person that I was. because
Mhm.
I had a nickname in the hood. They called me Juice, so I didn't want somebody to walk up and like, hey, what's up, Juice? Because I was never the female that hung around all the females. I was
Yeah, I
that,
understand that
that
all the way.
homie. So I didn't
Mhm.
want my husband and I to be out with somebody like, what's up, Juice? And he'd be like, who Juice? You know? So
Like juice.
Juice. Like, what was you into? So I felt good. I felt like, okay, he's an easy listener. He trusts me. Now I trust him. I can be transparent with him. And I can tell him stuff that I should be telling. And the communication part, we was here with it. It was like,
Took time. Yeah.
can y'all get it
Openness.
together?
Yeah.
And it was like we had to get it together though. What's we there? And it's still we still working.
Yeah.
But it feels so good to be able to come
Good.
in the house and say, babe, let me tell you what happened today. You
Yeah.
know, he knows all my coworkers. He'd be like, who did that? Such and such. That's how much I come in the house and just, he could pull up to the job and be like, that's such and such. That's such. When someone talk about somebody so much.
So much.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So the communication, it's not going to come right away, but the trust, the respect, the communication, everything ties in together.
Hmm.
And depending
Yes.
on yourself and the person, it will start tying in together. Pray
That's
for me.
very, yeah. That's very true, Michelle.
It is.
That's
And that's
very
a
true.
good point, that you said that he made you feel comfortable to be able to open up, like Bernice was saying. And with you sharing that, it made me think of, so one of my jobs at this point, I'm working, I'm focused, not thinking about a relationship, not thinking about dating or anything. This particular person started working in at my job. Now I'm keeping it professional. No sidebar conversations, no nothing initially. Um, so we just started, speaking at work. Hey, what's up, whatever. So our conversations gradually got more and more and more in depth. Um, After a while, I'm viewing this individually different. At first, she was just my coworker, so I was paying, attention. The more we started talking and vibing, I'm viewing him and looking at him differently. So that word trust that you guys talked about earlier, now I'm feeling comfortable and starting to trust him. So one conversation I'm sharing with him because of his profession and his expertise, I'm sharing with him my medical situation that we'll talk about as one of our topics in the future because a lot of women go through this. So I'm sharing that with him. And before I knew it, I'm like, what the heck?
Mhm.
Like,
Opened up.
I done sit here and told my this man all my medical business. And like
You make you feel safe.
he did. And from that conversation on, it's just I was looking at him at a different level. But it was that trust that, that brought it to that. So that's definitely for sure is something that's needed in a relationship because if you can't trust the person, you definitely ain't going to respect them and you definitely not going to have any of the other things at all unless your relationship is something totally different. But yeah,
And I did have a scripture as far as it relates to communication as we're winding down.
lovely,
James 1
lovely.
and 19. James 1 and 19 says, so then, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, and slow to wrath. For the wrath of man does not produce the righteousness of God. And I truly believe that's part of having effective, good communication like we said earlier, we listen to hear and not to speak. So how can we listen to hear if we're so quick to speak? But the word of God says, be swift to hear and slow to speak and slow to wrath. Don't be so quick to be angry and to blame and point fingers.
Judge. Mm-hmm.
And judge. Michelle said, don't be quick to judge. Just listen, take it in, and have a back and forth. You say something, the other party says something, and you listen to understand, not to wait till they finish their last and just jump right in and say, yo, nah. So even the word of God says that be swift to hear and slow to speak, slow to
Mm-hmm.
anger.
Yeah, and that's why it's also important with that scripture, choosing your battles. Like that ties into that because everything is not everything don't deserve your response. Everything doesn't deserve your feedback. Everything doesn't even deserve your energy
Yeah.
and you know what I mean? It's so picking and choosing what I'm a fuss about at work or with whoever is very potent because it's I ain't got the time. I don't got the time. So I would definitely say for you viewers out there who will see this video at some point, go back into our archive and watch the video of um hit it Bernice because I don't forgot that quick. The
Picking
quick
and choosing.
the huh?
Picking and choosing.
No, the I'm tongue tied. The video of not being quick to respond. Listen,
Oh, listen to hear and slow to speak, something like that.
yes. We do have a
That's
video totally on that conversation of
yeah.
basically just listen to your significant other. Don't be quick to have a respond, but communicate to hear. Um, and I'm gonna pass it back to Bernice.
Yeah, absolutely. And if that person is important to you, you want to make amends. Even if it's as like in a marriage, even if it's something small, because even in my own experience in my own marriage, um, because you care for that person, it may seem insignificant to you, but if you clearly see they're bothered by it, don't let that be in the middle of you guys. Just squash it and then move on. Because that little thing can grow, it can grow, and it can grow. And then 6 months, a year down the line, it'll explode into
Esther.
something completely different. But that's the root of the thing. Because they felt it was never acknowledged and they felt they weren't heard and they weren't seen. That's
Mhm,
important. In a
mhm.
loving relationship, you want to acknowledge it. It may not seem significant to you, but if you clearly see they're bothered by it, just don't waste time. Run, get rid, address it, squash it, and move on, and you'll be the better for it.
Mhm.
So, if anybody want to add anything else to that, let me
One
know.
thing I can say with men do not like to drag it on like we do. They want to talk about it, get it over with, and not have to deal with it. That that's us. Sometimes we need time to process it so we don't say the wrong thing out our mouths, but they don't understand. They just want to get look, okay, let's talk about it. They don't
Mhm.
understand how we
Mhm.
feel sometimes when we just need to, okay, let me woosah first, then we can talk about it.
Yeah,
'Cause I can remember a couple times Reggie be like, yeah, but that was 2 days ago. But I'm still dealing with it.
Yeah,
And men they just think
that's true.
totally different.
yeah, they do process things differently.
Yeah,
Um, but all I can say to that is try not to let it linger for too long.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
You'll pay for
If
it
you
later.
can deal with it that day before you go to bed, if all possible, I would recommend doing that so that you don't, you can go to bed at peace. Even though
Yeah.
you're like, well, I am at peace because now I'm asleep and I'm not, but you don't want to wake up continuing where you left off. Um, so I would just say, ladies out there, try your best to um Get it off
recommend.
your chest. Even if you say, babe, these are the bullet points that I would like to discuss tomorrow. Or, you can put it in that person's spirit, in their mind, that okay, we're okay for the night, but she would like to come back and discuss A, B, and C because it made her feel some type of way. Even if you just give that little part out so that they know and can have a mindset that this is not done, we to be continued type of thing. That's my
Yeah, that's
recommendation.
communication. That's part of good communication. Yeah,
Yeah.
always boils down to that.
And I
I
always
used to
try to
hear,
break it down to the lowest denominator. Like, think about how that person feels. Because at the end of the day, a relationship is not self, it's us. So we have to think about the others if you care about them. Um,
Exactly.
and try to think about how that other person feels. Because it may not be as deep. Like, we make our little small problems big for no reason.
mhm,
Um, if
Mhm.
we can try to think about the other person's feelings, and if we also can just try to listen, to not to respond, but listen to understand your partner,
Mhm.
that will
I
make
used
your
to hear people,
relationship so bomb, yo.
but
Like,
Yeah.
I
And
used to
believe it or
hear
not,
people
oh, go
say, I'm sorry, I used to hear people say, don't go to bed angry. And I used to be like,
that's why.
but it makes a lot of sense. For
it
one,
does.
gotta pray. You don't know if you're gonna wake up the next day.
Mhm.
And not only that, you don't want to wake up with an attitude.
Yeah,
So
it's bad bacteria. It's just going to continue to grow. It's going to be like a tumor. It's going to continue to
mhm.
feed off of, feed off of, feed off of. And we are more considerate of our partners and their feelings. Um, that'll make your bond so much dope, doper.
Yeah. And that
And
goes for all types of relationships, marriages, friendships, and even a work relationship. Honestly, if I see my coworker and something I said made them change, if you really have a heart of God in you, that will prick my heart. If I said something or did something that made my coworker upset or even cry, I would feel hurt. That would prick me. I don't know about anybody else. So I wouldn't
Mhm.
want them to feel uncomfortable around me because of what I did or what I said. If it was, you know what I mean, if it hurt them, it may
Yeah.
seem significant to you, but whatever you did changed their behavior and they're now uncomfortable in your presence. I don't want that. That's not how I want to portray it to the world. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's
mhm.
any relationship in my book, honestly.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yep.
So with that being said, um, we had a great conversation, y'all.
We
This was nice.
did.
So we'll go ahead and end it for tonight. Again, you guys chime in the chat in the section. Go ahead and give your 2 cents, what you can put into what you thought about accountability and communication in a healthy relationship. And what did you get from it? How can you share your own experiences? What went bad for you? And how did you learn from it in your current state of relationship, in your world? So again, go ahead and comment and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.
Yes, we will.
Good
Toodles.
Great night.
night.